Hey y'all, it's Dustin
and Burton.
and today we are going to be talking about surrogacy and fertility.
Yeah, basically everything around our journey to parenthood.
Yeah. So we wanted to take a moment to answer some questions that we get regarding surrogacy, being that that is the path that we took.
That's right. And we know it can be overwhelming because we've been there. We went through that journey before. And so that's why we partnered with Fertility Out Loud for this video.
Yeah, Fertility Out Loud is an amazing community and resource. They have a melting pot of resources and community members that help navigate questions that you may have over this very complex topic.
That's right. And I honestly feel like surrogacy chose us, right?
Yeah, oh my goodness, totally. Because after we looked into fostering, adoption, surrogacy, we went to a fertility clinic and they answered so many questions for us. And we left knowing that that was the right path for us.
That's right. So let's dive in.
Yeah. So question number one, what is surrogacy and how does it work?
Right. So surrogacy is a method of assisted reproduction where intended parents work with a woman who agrees to carry and care for their baby until birth.
Or babies. Yeah, and intended parents use a surrogate to help, grow or start their family when they can't do so independently. And for us, we couldn't do it, so we needed this help. Another question that we get is, what is the difference between a traditional surrogate and a gestational surrogacy? And what are the pros and cons to both of those? Because I feel like a lot of people don't realize that there are two different types of surrogacy.
That's right. So traditional surrogacy is when the carrier uses her own egg, and gestational surrogacy is when the carrier uses an egg that's not her own. It could be either from a donor or from the female intended parent.
So there are pros and cons to both, right? So when you're using a traditional surrogate, it can actually be a lot less expensive because you don't have to have a donor egg. You can use IUI, which is a form of artificial insemination, than having to go through IVF, which can be very costly.
That's right. And on the other hand, IVF is when you're joining a woman's egg and a man's sperm in a lab, and that's the process we went through, and that can be much more costly.
In other words, if you're using a traditional surrogate, you can get away with just using IUI. Now, if you're using a gestational surrogate, you're going to have to use IVF, and that can be costly.
Another question that we get all the time is, where do I begin in the process?
So there are many ways you can go about this process. One would be using an agency. Now, agencies are great because they do a lot more hand holding. They will help you find your surrogate, your egg donor, your lawyers, even down to giving the psych evaluations for you.
Right. And the other option is the path that we chose, and that's going through a fertility clinic. And of course, they have the egg donors, but some, like the one we went with, have a list of potential surrogates, lawyers, and doctors.
Yeah, but the thing is, we had to actually do the interview. So we interviewed dozens of surrogates and even sent them to have the psych evaluations that we had to do that for.
That's right. So there's a lot more vetting that you have to do on your own by going through the fertility clinic.
Yeah, and another option is some people use friends and family. Now, there are friends and families of other people that we know that have been willing to be the egg donor or even the surrogate.
That's right.
Another question that we get is, would we do something differently if we had to do it all over again? And what would be the biggest piece of advice for someone about to go through this process? Now, I would say the biggest, piece of advice I would give someone is to show yourself some grace.
Absolutely.
Here's the thing, no one's story is going to be the same. Not everyone has the same experience. And so, there are going to be some bumps along the road and you have to show yourself some grace.
That's right. Yeah. There are no guarantees here. This is a very complex process with a lot of moving parts, and you will run into some roadblocks. It's going to happen.
I mean, it could be, and after you've interviewed countless surrogates and no one feels right, or if you found someone and you didn't have a successful transfer. All of these things can be overwhelming and it can kind of take the wind out of the sails, but you have to have faith, you have to be positive, and just know that you just can't rush things.
Just know that some things are going to be out of your control and you have to be open to changing plans.
That's right. And another piece of advice I would say is always listen to your gut. Right. I think sometimes we get so excited, we want things so bad that we don't listen to our gut. And if something doesn't feel right, then you should pause. And even if it takes a little bit more time, you should listen to that gut, listen to your heart, because I find that when you listen to your gut, it never fails. It never fails you.
Right. So no matter what, if it takes longer until things feel right, that's okay, because in the end, it's going to be worth it.
Totally. So if you've been hanging on to every word that we've been saying, you're probably very interested in surrogacy.
Yeah, and that means you're probably on your parenting journey, and that's exciting. Congratulations. If so, it is an exciting time, but it's also an overwhelming time.